Hello everyone. Today I'm sharing a story that will make you question everything you thought you knew about wealth and loyalty. What happens when a billionaire's perfect life unravels in one devastating night? Elena's fingers trembled. The velvet lining of the music box was cold. She had only meant to find a keepsake. A small piece of Evelyn to hold on to. But as the lid clicked open, something else caught the light. A heavy, gold-embossed black envelope. It didn't belong here. It felt intentional. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She pulled the parchment out. The handwriting was unmistakable. Evelyn's sharp, elegant script. But the words. The words were a death sentence for the Vance dynasty. No, this can't be right. The reception was a masterclass in performative grief. The Vance estate was filled with the scent of expensive lilies and even more expensive perfume. Everyone was dressed in black, but their eyes were scanning the room, calculating the value of the silver and the weight of the portraits on the walls. Elena stood by the window, feeling like a ghost in her own life. She was the widow, the unstable one, the woman who had married into the bloodline but never quite belonged. Across the room, she saw Julian. Her husband. He wasn't mourning. He was holding court, his laughter too loud, his gestures too wide. Yes, she was a force of nature. A titan. We shall miss her guidance. Immensely. Polite, hollow laughter followed. And there, in the corner, was Maria. The housekeeper. She stood perfectly still, her hands folded, her face a mask of quiet dignity. She was the only one who looked like she was actually mourning. Or so Elena thought. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the atmosphere shifted. The grief was being replaced by something sharper. Something hungrier. Julian moved through the crowd like a shark through shallow water. He wasn't talking about Evelyn's life anymore. He was talking about her legacy. Her assets. The estate. The holdings in London. The vineyard in Napa. It's all too much for one person to manage. We need to move quickly. Before the probate gets messy. Elena watched him, the black envelope heavy in her clutch. She felt a sudden, sickening urge to scream the truth. To tell them that Evelyn had left everything to the woman who polished the silver. But she stayed silent. She watched Julian corner a group of investors, his eyes gleaming with a terrifying, predatory light. Don't worry about Elena. She's overwhelmed. She needs rest. I'll handle the heavy lifting. The breaking point came with a single, devastating comment. Julian, fueled by champagne and arrogance, decided to make an example of Elena. He wanted to assert his dominance, to show the room that he was the true heir to the Vance power. My dear Elena is simply not herself. The grief. It's unraveled her. She's been quite erratic lately. We all know how fragile she can be. A wave of hushed, judgmental whispers followed. The whispers were like tiny knives. Elena felt the heat rise in her cheeks. She saw the looks of pity, the sneers of disgust. She was being dismantled in front of the very people she had spent years trying to impress. She was the unstable widow, a liability to the brand. Julian smiled, a cruel, triumphant thing. He thought he had won. He thought he had cleared the path. Is that what you think, Julian? That I'm too broken to see what's happening right in front of us? The tension was shattered by the arrival of Mr. Sterling, Evelyn's personal attorney. He didn't look like a man attending a funeral. He looked like a man arriving to execute a sentence. He walked straight to the center of the room, ignoring the socialites, ignoring Julian, and looking directly at Elena. Pardon the interruption. But there is a matter of the final codicil that requires immediate attention. A collective gasp filled the room. Julian stepped forward, his face flushed. Sterling? What is this? We'll handle the probate tomorrow. No, Mr. Vance. The instructions are explicit. The reading must occur tonight. At this reception. He pulled a document from his briefcase. The room was so silent you could hear the heartbeat of the house. He began to read. The words were a hammer blow. The Vance estate, the holdings, the properties, the liquid assets. They were not to go to Julian. They were not to go to the Vance bloodline. I hereby name Maria Santos, my housekeeper of 20 years, as the sole and absolute heir to my entire estate. A deafening silence was followed by a chaotic explosion of noise, shouts, gasps, and the sound of a glass shattering. As the room descended into a frenzy of accusations, Elena didn't join the fray. She didn't scream at Maria, and she didn't fight Julian. Instead, she pulled the black envelope from her clutch. She read the second page. The page she had missed in her initial shock. The page that contained the why. It wasn't just a will. It was a test. Evelyn had written a codicil, a vulture clause. It stated that the inheritance would only be granted to Maria if the family demonstrated true respect and dignity during the mourning period. If they showed greed, if they showed contempt for the staff, or if they attempted to manipulate the estate before the funeral was concluded, the entire inheritance would be diverted to a charitable trust, leaving the family with nothing but their names and their debts. She knew. She knew exactly what they would do. Julian's loud, aggressive demands for a recount. The socialites' immediate turn against Maria. The way they were already clawing at the legacy. They were doing exactly what Evelyn had predicted. They were triggering their own destruction. The scandal wasn't the housekeeper's inheritance. The scandal was the family's true nature, laid bare for the world to see. The fallout was absolute. By morning, the news had leaked. The vulture clause became the headline of every social column in the country. The Vance family, once the untouchable royalty of the city, was exposed as a pack of scavengers. Julian's reputation was incinerated. His business partners, sensing the rot, vanished overnight. The dynasty didn't just fall, it imploded. Elena watched from the doorway as the movers began to take the furniture. Maria was gone, having moved into the estate as its new mistress, her dignity intact. Julian sat in the middle of the empty ballroom, surrounded by nothing but shadows and the wreckage of his own greed. He looked small. He looked broken. You should have just mourned, Julian. It would have been cheaper. Elena sat in the dark, the only light coming from the street lamps below. She held the music box in her lap. She had walked away with her dignity, and perhaps a small portion of the settlement that Evelyn had left specifically for her. But the silence of the apartment felt heavy. It felt like a reminder. She realized then that Evelyn hadn't just punished the family. She had punished everyone. The truth doesn't just set you free. Sometimes, it just leaves you alone in the dark. Thank you for listening. Sometimes justice comes in unexpected ways. I'll be back soon with more incredible stories that will keep you up at night. Until then, watch what you leave behind.